Hey, girl gang. Hey, super mamas. This is Dr. Joy here, and you are watching Delivering Joy MD TV. We are continuing our series on the rebirth of joy, reclaiming the reproductive rights and health of Black birthers. So, as you know, we've been on this series, and now we have come to episode 5. And I have a heavy hitter for you today who is one of my absolute favorite people, one of my mentors in the birth workspace. So I am super excited to introduce to you today Rose Horton. So you definitely do not want to miss this episode. She's going to be talking to us today about changing the narrative. Make sure you keep watching. All right, you guys, we're back. And today's special guest is one of the people that I admire so much who is doing so much to change the narrative in the birth workspace, who works so hard every day, not only to lead a unit in Georgia, but who is also working to change things across the United States in advocacy, in policy and procedure, and also privately in the private sector for folks who are birthing and for families who are birthing. And so I'm super excited to introduce to you today Rose Horton.
Oh, hello everyone. I'm so excited to be here with one of my favorite people, also Dr. Joy. I am thrilled and privileged and honored and blessed to work with the birthing community. I knew immediately when I was in college and I had my first clinical rotation in OB that this is what I wanted to do. When I saw my first birth, it was so magical. I was transfixed and my eyes filled up with tears. I was like, wow, I want to do this for my entire career. And I feel very thankful that I've been able to do that in some capacity throughout my career. And I am excited about this topic about reclaiming joy because we deserve it. We as Black women, as Black mamas, we deserve to reclaim the joy centered around childbirth. It's super important for us, and I think this conversation is going to be really helpful for me, and I'm hoping it's going to be helpful for you as well.
Rose, one of the things that really first drew my attention to you and the work that you were doing in this space was the Not on My Watch campaign. I thought that was just absolutely amazing. I first saw it on social media and I thought, wow, this is amazing. And I started to look into it and I found out that you were right here in Georgia in a hospital where I did part of my training. And so tell us a little bit about the Not on My Watch campaign.
Yes, I'm happy to do that. So the hashtag Not on My Watch really was born out of my frustration with maternal morbidity and mortality. I remember it was 2017 and I was doing some research for a presentation about maternal mortality, and I saw article after article about women losing their lives, about women not being heard, about families just feeling so distraught. And it wasn't in the usual places for healthcare workers. It wasn't in the peer-reviewed journals. It was in USA Today. It was in ProPublica. It was in NPR. It was in the mainstream media. And I was like, what on earth is going on? And I was so frustrated. I'm like, what can I do? And it just came to me. I said, you know what? Not on my watch. This is not going to happen on my watch. In my locus of control, and the oversight that I have at the hospital where I work for my labor and delivery unit, mother baby unit, the neonatal intensive care unit, it's not going to happen on my watch. And it grew to be a call to action for all nurses. And I am fortunate to have a national platform. So what I said to my nurses, my colleagues, my partners, I said, this isn't a call to action. What I'd like you to do with me is to say to the women that you're caring for, to the birthing people that you're caring for, in the time that I'm caring for you, number one, I'm going to treat you with dignity and respect. I'm going to believe you. When you say you're in pain, when you say you feel overwhelmed, I'm going to listen and I'm going to believe you. I'm going to advocate for you. I see you. I'm your person. I'm going to make sure that my care is evidence based. And I said, can you imagine the level of safety that we create for our patients when we say this? We say this and we have to mean it. We have to follow up with our action. So that was my call to action for all nurses. And that's definitely something we're doing in our units. It's not going to happen on our watch because what we know about maternal morbidity and mortality is that 60% of the deaths are preventable. That's the space that I really, really want us to focus on. So that was not on my watch. I remember when I first shared it with friends and colleagues. There were 285 people at a leadership meeting, and I said, "I've coined this hashtag, and I predict it's going to go. It's going to go viral." I said, even if going viral means it's just going viral in our organization, never in my wildest dreams did I think that it would have the visibility that it's had and that it would resonate with so many people. But I love it. So it's timely and it's my life's work and my commitment, not on my watch.
So amazing. I love that. Not on my watch. And I love what you said about the level of safety that it creates for birthing people and for women who might be very anxious. And one thing when we first started talking about this project, because you were actually the first person that I talked to about this project when it was just kind of like in my head, in my dreams, we talked about how we've been done so well at raising the alarm for Black birthers and saying, hey, you're in danger, you're in danger. Black women are 2 to 3 times more likely to die in the state of Georgia, and in some states, up to 8 times more likely to die. Now we've gotten to the point where people are afraid. And I think when we were talking, I told you about a conversation that I had with a patient where I was kind of asking her, well, would you like an epidural? And do you want to have low lighting and all these sorts of things? And she was just like, hey, look, I just don't want to die, you know? And it kind of jarred me. And I'm like, oh, whoa, I'm not even talking about dying. I'm just asking about your preferences. And, I think that now we're at a point where we have to start thinking about how do we kind of back away from the death and destruction and start talking about the joy and the anticipation. And while we know there may be some dangers that are involved, how do we arm them with knowledge to advocate for themselves, but still not completely cause Black birthing people to be devoid of the joy and the anticipation and the excitement that comes along with birth?
I think that's a really great question, and that's the space where we're in right now. Um, and here's my thought about that, because again, not on my watch was my call to action, right? That this is what I'm going to do so that we create a safety net. So I have been one of those saying, listen, be aware that birth can have some complications and that we need to use our voice, amplify our voice. Let me tell you about the chain of command. So I've been one of those saying, okay, be prepared. But you're right, the time has come for us to change the narrative. I've been working on a business plan that I've shared with you, Joy. And I remember it was around the summer of 2020. I saw a post on Instagram, and it was a woman of color that said, I just found out that I'm pregnant and I'm terrified. And I cannot tell you the visceral reaction that I had to that. My eyes filled up with tears because it's not supposed to be that way. That's not how we're supposed to react to finding out that we're pregnant. It's supposed to be, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I'm a little, afraid, but this is the best thing ever. And if I wasn't working on my business plan, I think I was going to be propelled to do something. And that's the whole reason why I created Antonia and Grace, because I want us to, it's a concierge program that's created by a woman of color for birthing people of color to help help our clients navigate through pregnancy, through labor, and through birth. I believe that the village is vitally super important for us as Black women as we go through pregnancy. So the biggest part of my company is that we partner our clients with a nurse to help navigate and coordinate throughout pregnancy, with a doula, and also with a lactation consultant for those who are planning for human milk for their babies. I think that that trifecta really has an impact on helping our clients to feel safer, helping them when they have a visit with their provider and maybe they have a question or they're like, I'm not sure that they listen to me. What are some of the words that I can use? We're willing to do that. I created two amazing childbirth education classes, again, by a Black person for the Black birthing community to give information, to give instruction to our clients. And one of them is called Colonialism in the Black Birth Experience, because I don't think we've talked about that the way that we need to. And the second is Breastfeeding While Black. Our history really impacts the decisions that we make today. And I just want everyone to be aware of that. So it's a beautiful, beautiful business plan, beautiful program that's very concierge. It's going to feel very exclusive because it is, because we deserve it. You're going to feel pampered. We offer so many things through the program, from massages to really addressing your mental health. At every meeting with our nurse navigator, we're going to ask you questions that are centered to center right around your mental health. And we're going to connect you with a provider should the questions, the responses tell us that you need additional help. We want to take all of the guesswork, all of the difficulty in scheduling, take all of that out so that you can enjoy birth. Our tagline is that every birth should be sacred and joyful. And I'm so, so very excited about Antonia and Grace because I think it is going to be one of the businesses that really changes the trajectory and changes the narrative, and that women can feel like they have an option with qualified and informed, and also people who are major, major advocates for them to help them through this amazing process called pregnancy, labor, and birth. So that's my one small contribution. And Antonia and Grace is a program that's available nationally, not just here in Georgia, for the birthing community. So I'm super excited about it.
Oh, wow. That is no small contribution. I think that that's so major because it's something that's so needed. And as an obstetrician, I see it all the time. I see folks who are kind of just wandering through the whole experience of pregnancy. They need that additional education, that additional support. So I think that that is just something that is so necessary. Tell me a little bit more about this colonialism and the Black birth experience. That sounds like something that we really need to hear about.
Yeah. So I thought it's really important for us to talk about slavery. And some people say, oh, that's so dark. What do we want to talk about that? Yeah, we really need to honor what's happened to us as Black people in the past. And so we're going to talk about slavery. We're going to talk about the impact of racism. We're going to talk about how the Black body has been overly sexualized and what the downstream impact has been on us as women, how we see our bodies, how we value our bodies. And we're going to talk about the birthing experience because we know from a historical perspective that we as Blacks, we as slaves, there were a lot of experiments done to our bodies without our consent. We were brutalized. And that narrative is important just to say, this is what's happened. And some of this is still residual in the medical field. And how do we find our voice? How do we understand when we have conversations with people and we react in a visceral way? Where is that coming from? It's important to acknowledge that. And also in the class, I talk about all the wonderful things associated with labor and what you can expect when you come to the hospital, when you come to the birth center, or if you're planning on having your baby at home. We talk about how do you create that atmosphere that you want. Should something happen in the healthcare setting that you feel very uncomfortable with and you feel frightened, and the cortisol is coursing through your body. I talk about the chain of command because there are words that we as healthcare providers, we really respond to. When you use words like, I'm concerned, I'm uncomfortable, this is a safety concern, that really gets us going. And I talk about the chain of command that every hospital in the United States, they have a nurse manager, they have a director of nursing, they have a chief nurse officer, and you are able to say, I'd like to speak to this person because I really don't feel like anybody's listening to me. So I want everyone to know that you can go as high as the CEO of an organization. It's your right if you feel afraid, if you feel like you're not being listened to. And I think arming the birthing community with that information, again, decreases the anxiety, gives them a sense of control and knowledge and information so that they can focus on being pregnant, going into labor, letting their body do what our bodies do so amazingly well, and not be as concerned about the what ifs, because now I'm informed, my partner is informed, my doula is here with me, I have a navigator on speed dial if I need to call them. So all of this is to inform so that pregnancy, labor, and birth can really proceed in a way that we have all wanted it to do. We want it to be, again, joyful, sacred, exciting, and all the other things that come with going through a natural and wonderful birth.
Big fan of birthing people not having to always self advocate. I love for there to be a village in the room that can advocate for birthing people so that they can focus on being um, in the zone, is what I
Mhm.
like to call it, so that they can focus on just their body doing the process of labor and
Right.
birth so that someone else can take on the role of being the advocate. I want to switch gears a little bit, talk a little bit about the work that you're doing nationally, because I think that that's so important. Georgia is my home, and it's your home, and
Mhm.
we love it, and we want to bring Georgia forward in terms of
Yes.
where we're going with our maternal morbidity and mortality. And we know that Black women in Georgia are more likely to die. And so focusing on Black women is really key to bringing Georgia forward. But it's across the country,
Right.
and we know that. So um, I want to talk a little bit about your national focus. Can you tell us a little bit about how you were chosen to lead nationally and what that's been like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I was very privileged to be tapped to join the Black Stakeholder Group, which is a national group that was put together by the Office of Health and Human Services, aka the White House. So this is called the Biden administration stakeholder group. So Health and Human Services, March of Dimes, and we had a great funder. One of our CMOs is a funder for the whole program. How I was chosen, I have no idea. But I was chosen and I was
And
so
you're
thrilled.
awesome. You're so awesome.
But I have to tell you, it was really funny when I got the email inviting me to be part of this stakeholder group to look at Black maternal health. I couldn't be more excited. And when we had the first meeting, of course, it's through the pandemic and it's via Zoom. We had the first meeting, and I saw that it was really a big deal and that it was okay, it's the White House. That's what I've been invited to. So I laughed because I said yes because that's my default answer and that's my passion. I wanted to be part of a national focus, but I had no idea it was as big of a deal as it was. So I'll always remember the first meeting, my eyes were like, oh, wow, this is great. What I love, love, love about this opportunity is that the work that all of us have done to really say, hey, maternal mortality continues to increase in the nation that spends the most money per capita on healthcare, and we're not okay with it. We're not okay with it. So our our outcry has reached the level of the White House, and I could not be any more excited. So 32 of us are meeting to have conversations around what can we do. What I love about the team is incredibly diverse and interprofessional. So it is a combination of physicians, of nurse midwives, of nurse leaders, of legislators, of doulas, of lactation consultants, of birth workers. And it's so holistic. And I was like, this is so beautiful. Because we know, again, it's going to take a village, it's going to take the perspective of so many of us to really change outcomes. And the meetings are so rich and so robust, and the perspectives are, it's been so fabulous. Ultimately, our goal is that we will change, we will create accountability measures that will help enforce and help us to improve the outcomes. We had one conversation when we were asked, well, what would you do to change this situation? And I remember I was thinking, yikes, within my locus of control, this is my thoughts. I'm like, I can do this, this, and this. And I think the facilitator, she was looking at my face, so she called me out. She's like, Rose, what would you do? And I hesitated for a second. She's like, don't forget you have the backing of the White House. I'm like, I have the backing of the White House. Yes, let me tell you what I would do. And we had an amazing conversation, because when you remove all the barriers, you're able to think creatively, and you can say, this needs to happen. I can't control it, but this needs to happen, and this needs to happen, and this. So that has been really, really wonderful. And the big takeaway that I want everyone listening to understand, especially the birthing community, is that at the highest level of our country, this has been escalated. And under the leadership of our VP, Kamala Harris, we are going to make a change. Again, it takes all of us. It takes providers, it takes legislators, it takes payers, and everybody has a seat at the table. And we are going to have an impact. So again, I count myself privileged and humbled and thankful that I got a seat at the table. And I am here for us, and it's going to be great.
I'm like almost bouncing in my seat. I'm so excited. I'm so excited because one, I know you, and I know that you are doing a great job representing us here in the Southeast and in Georgia. And I know that you get things done. And of all people that I know that are doing work in this space, you have probably gone the farthest. Your team has advanced the furthest in taking care of women and in putting safeguards in place and actually collecting data, like, in putting these dashboards and thinking creatively and thinking outside of the box. Like, your team has come together and put so many things together. And so whenever I think about, well, who could I ask about how we could do this better? I always say, oh, I'll ask Rose, you know? So I'm so excited that you are actually on this national panel and working in this collaborative group, because I think you guys are going to get some good stuff done. So, as we get ready to wrap up our conversation on this, I want to just kind of pick your brain about, changing this narrative nationally. What would you say to the Black birthing woman or person about how to enter into her birthing space? Maybe she's not quite sure about her team or where she's going to birth. Maybe she lives in a rural space and she doesn't have many options. What do you say to her as she's getting ready to go in to have her baby, or they're going in to have their baby? How do you coach them on entering that space with joy, and with confidence?
I think that's a really great question, Joy. I would say to our Black birthing community that the energy that you bring in is vitally important. It's important, how we as Black women, we do that self-talk. I do it regularly. I'm like, look at you. You look beautiful. You're so smart. You're so capable. You go out there and you do you. So I think it's just as important to have that self-talk and to understand that Number one, you were created for this. Your body knows what it's doing. Trust and believe your body and have the confidence to say, this is how I feel. This is what I think needs to happen. If something doesn't feel right. So you were created for this. Your body knows what it's going to do. Bring that energy with you, that confidence that I can do this. I was created for this. My body can do this. And I also want to say, bring in a level of confidence and trust. Even though you're not sure about the team, just exude that I'm going to surrender my doubts. I'm going to surrender my disbeliefs, my anxiety, my worry, because I know that right now what my baby needs is loving energy. I'm going to surrender and let go of all of that. Every time you take a deep breath, every time that contraction, I remember those contractions so well. Every time that contraction starts, you're going to take a deep breath in. You're going to exhale all of that negativity. Surrender, trust, believe, because we know that at the end of the day that it's more than just a team. The team is there, they're great. There is a higher power that I absolutely believe in that will guide us through. So as we're doing the hard work to change the narrative and to change the expectations and how we all work within this space, we're doing this at a really rapid pace. You bring in that energy of trust, of faith, of confidence, belief in my body, belief in my village. Bring your village with you. COVID restrictions are lifting, and almost all the hospitals are allowing at least 2 people. So go ahead and bring the 2 people who are most important to you through labor. Let them create that space for you and create that energy for you. Don't surround yourselves with fear, with anxiety, with the sky is falling. You don't need that. Your body needs the positive energy that I know that all of us are able to bring in with us. So I encourage you, I want you to manifest the best for your birth, your pregnancy. Surround yourself with people who love you and who will advocate for you and create that safety net. And I'm excited to hear about all the wonderful outcomes of all the wonderful, sacred, joyful births that's going to occur in the very near future.
That made me feel good, and I'm not even going into birth. So I so appreciate all of the wonderful things that you shared with us today, all of the wonderful things that you're doing to promote change in the Black birthing community and just nationally in the birth workspace. I appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. And you have been a recurring guest. We've talked before, and I'm so excited about the work that you're doing nationally. This is going to be amazing. So I just want to say thank you so much. And we will certainly talk again and talk more about the services that are available through Antonia and Grace. And hope to have you back to talk more about the work that's happening nationally. It's amazing.
Bye,
So,
everyone.
fun. We'll catch you next time, Girl Gang and Super Mamas. Make sure you stay tuned on BTV and here on YouTube. Peace.